There was a place set for everyone, except me. I'm Emily Carter, and I stood just inside my mother's dining room, holding a small gift wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine. The whole house smelled like cinnamon-glazed ham and sweet potatoes. The table shimmered under soft candlelight, crystal glasses, carefully written name cards, napkins folded into neat triangles. Somebody had taken great care. It looked like something out of a holiday magazine. Just not for me. Logan, my older brother, sat confidently at the head of the table, broad-shouldered as ever, that same smug grin on his face like he owned the place. He carved the ham like he'd been doing it for years, like it was his role now. Next to him sat my cousin Madison, wrapped in one of Mom's old silk scarves, the pale green one she used to save for Christmas Eve. She laughed at one of Logan's jokes, swirling her wine as if this was always her home, like she belonged. I glanced over the table one more time, hoping to spot a chair that had been overlooked or maybe a napkin waiting to be placed, but everything was perfectly arranged, flawless and final, just without me. Mom stood by the kitchen pass-through, carefully layering marshmallows on the sweet potatoes. She didn't even glance my way. I swallowed hard. "I think you forgot my seat," I said, calm but quiet. Logan didn't pause, didn't even lift his eyes. "It's out back," he said flatly, "with the dogs." For a moment I wondered if I'd heard wrong. Then Madison let out a soft laugh. One of the cousins shifted uncomfortably in his chair, a fork scraped against a plate. That was all. No one gasped, no one objected, just the kind of silence that answers every question. I stood frozen, the gift still in my hands. My face flushed, not from embarrassment, but from realization. I hadn't been overlooked. I'd been deliberately left out, and no one sitting at that table saw anything wrong with it. I could have thrown the box down, raised my voice, demanded answers, but I didn't need to. The message was already loud, and my response, just as clear. I turned around and walked out. The cold air hit me like a slap, sharp and dry. I didn't run, didn't cry. I walked to my car, set the gift on the passenger seat, and sat quietly. My breath misted the glass. Behind me, the house glowed, filled with warmth and laughter. None of it meant for me. And for the first time, I stopped pretending next year might be different. That night didn't shatter me. It confirmed what I'd been denying. I hadn't been forgotten. I'd been erased. Silently. Thoroughly. And they'd done it so seamlessly, no one even noticed I was missing. The cold night clung to me as I sat in the car, the gift untouched beside me. Through the fogged windows, I could still hear them laughing. A language I used to know. Not anymore. It hadn't always been this way. There was a time when home meant something. When I was 7, Christmas felt like magic. Our tree was crooked and smelled like damp pine over carpet that never quite dried. The lights flickered, half golden, half a weird green that clashed with everything. I adored it. Logan and I used to argue over who got to hang the wooden reindeer Dad had made when we were little. One antler was chipped, one leg shorter than the rest. But to us, it was perfect. It always went front and center. Dad would hang the outdoor lights every year, but he always needed a helper. I'd race ahead, holding the tangled cords like they were treasure, while he pinned them to the eaves with clothespins and stubborn determination. "You've got more energy than a blizzard," he'd laugh. And when I started to shiver, he'd toss me his flannel, way too big, and say, "You earned your marshmallows, kiddo." Later, we'd sip cocoa from mismatched mugs. Mine had worn holly leaves. Logan's had a snowman missing one eye thanks to the dishwasher. We'd sit cross-legged near the tree, lights blinking in uneven rhythm, and Dad would read aloud from his tattered copy of the best Christmas pageant ever. Logan always tried not to laugh, and always failed. Every time Dad did his voice for Imogene Herdman, I'd inch closer, even though I already knew every word. A part of me believed if I listened hard enough, the ending might somehow change. Back then, Mom was softer. different, almost warm. Mom used to hum softly while peeling potatoes. Always a little off-key, but always sweet. Silent night or have yourself a merry little Christmas mostly. And every now and then, when she thought no one was looking, she'd spin slowly in her apron, just once or twice, like she still remembered how it felt to be light again. She held on to our holiday rituals, not because they were flawless, but because they were ours. Each Christmas Eve, she let me open one small gift early. Nothing big, maybe a pair of mittens or a bookmark, but what mattered was that it had my name on it, written in her careful script, and her hands were warm when she placed it in mine. Logan and I weren't always strangers. He used to let me tag along when he and Dad went to chop wood, even if the axe was twice my size. He'd crack ridiculous jokes, toss me into snowbanks, then pull me out grinning like it was our secret game. I still remember the day I slipped on the porch, hit the ice hard, and split my lip. Logan cried harder than I did. "You're not allowed to die, okay? Not ever," he said, wrapping me in his jacket, calling for Mom like it was the end of everything. There was a time this house felt like it remembered me. My seat was always there, even if it was just a shaky stool tucked in at the edge. When the chipped holly mug wasn't buried in a storage bin, but sitting by the kettle waiting for me. When I didn't have to raise my voice just to be noticed. Funny how fading happens so slowly that you don't notice, until the silence is too heavy to ignore. And tonight, under the glow of a house that once felt like home, I finally admitted something I'd avoided for years. I kept coming back because I thought nostalgia could save me a spot. I believed that if I stayed loyal enough, patient enough, someone might see the missing chair. But love here had turned into something you earned by keeping quiet. And I wasn't going to trade my presence for a seat at a table where they'd already forgotten the girl I used to be. For the longest time, I thought distance was just a matter of miles. Moving to Portland didn't mean I had stepped away. It meant I was creating a life of my own. I still called every Sunday, made it home for every holiday I could. I wired money when they needed it. Once even paid a medical bill without anyone asking. It felt good being the reliable one. Like I still mattered, even from afar. Like love could stretch across absence if I kept showing up in other ways. But somewhere in the mix, my absence became a reason to leave me out. It began subtly. I missed a call from Mom and called back a bit late. Logan picked up, chipper as always. "Dad's resting. I'll let him know you rang." A few days later, same thing. Logan answered. "He's not quite himself today, maybe try later." I didn't question it. Why would I? He was nearby, helping. That's what family does. Then I realized I hadn't actually spoken to Dad in weeks. Just Logan's filtered updates. Concerned, composed, always calm. When I finally asked Mom if I could talk to Dad directly, she hesitated. "Sweetheart, Logan's just been handling everything. It's simpler that way." That word again. Easier. Easier than what? I let it go. Didn't want to be the problem child. Told myself it was just logistics. That they were overwhelmed. That maybe I was overthinking. But every visit home wore that belief down. The first real crack? That winter, I noticed a photo missing. The one of Dad and me by the fence we built together. The one that used to hang by the stairs. It used to hang right by the stairs in the front hallway. Now it had been replaced with a picture of Logan and Madison at some garden center, holding a tray of mums like they'd just rescued the family farm. I tried to believe it was just redecorating. But then came Thanksgiving. Logan's stocking was there. Madison's too. Mine? Nowhere in sight. I later found it jammed in a box deep in the hallway closet, buried under a pile of holiday cards I'd sent through the years, most of them still sealed. And still, no one ever said a word. No confrontation. No harsh goodbye. They didn't shove me out. They just slowly stopped inviting me in. Every time I visited, something small had changed. The mugs I grew up with were gone, replaced by a matching set. The dish towels were moved to a different drawer. Dad's toolbox wasn't under the sink anymore. It had been shoved into the garage, behind boxes I'd never seen. And Madison's handwriting started showing up on sticky notes across the fridge. Oven's on. PT at 2. Ferns need water. She was leaving reminders like it was her house. I still had a key. I still let myself in. But each time I paused at the door a little longer, listening, trying to figure out how much of me was still welcome inside. Mom didn't mean to be distant. She'd smile when I came, still offer me tea. But her smile felt thinner now, tired around the edges, like even small warmth might tip something already cracked. And me, always too polite, too hopeful, kept acting like I didn't see it. I told myself families went through phases. Maybe this was just one of them. I wanted to believe my seat was just in a different spot. But I knew better. Things don't vanish all at once. They fade, they shift, they get replaced. And then one day, you realize you're just a visitor in the place that used to be your home. In the beginning, Madison was just visiting. That's what Mom told me. She's been helping out while your dad's not well. I bought it. I wanted to. I told myself, this is what family does, shows up when needed. Madison being around more? Just part of that. But then she started staying. I noticed it on a fall trip home. Her shoes neatly lined up, coat hanging beside Dad's, a travel mug with her initials sitting on the counter like it had always been there. Nothing loud or obvious, just quiet truths. She wasn't visiting anymore. She lived there. I never got a heads up. No one asked how I felt. No one said, hey, this might be a little strange, but Madison's moved in. It just was. And everyone was fine with it. Madison had always had that slippery kind of charm. The kind of girl who'd borrow your sweater and convince you it was hers all along. She once ran out of a family dinner in tears, sobbing, "Why does everyone think I'm the villain?" She cried often, apologized quickly, and somehow always landed exactly where she wanted. She had drifted from the family for years. But the moment Dad got sick, she was suddenly front and center. Then she started popping up in photos Mom shared online, grinning next to Logan by the tree, carrying dinner rolls at Thanksgiving, laughing with Mom while wearing that same green scarf I used to borrow every Christmas Eve. In one picture, her arm was wrapped around Mom. The caption? My girls. I wasn't even tagged. I tried to shrug it off, told myself I was just being sensitive, jealous even. But then came the moment I couldn't excuse. It was a random Tuesday. I'd just finished a meeting and saw a missed call from home. I called back right away, and Madison answered. Her tone was easy, casual, like she'd always been part of that house. Hey, it's Madison. Your mom's wrist deep in pie crust. Should I have her call you later? Your mom. Not Aunt Deborah. Not even Deborah. Just your mom. It wasn't the words that hurt. It was how natural they sounded coming from her. She didn't pause, didn't backtrack. She said it like she owned it. And what gutted me most? No one corrected her. Not Mom, not Logan. No one. I brought it up to Mom a week later, cautiously. So, is Madison living with you now? Or just helping around? She gave me a faint smile, the kind that shuts a door gently in your face. She's been a godsend, Mom replied. You know how things have been lately. A godsend. That's all she gave me. No comfort. No hint she realized how strange it felt being replaced, not through arguments, but in little things. Cups, scarves, photographs. And piece by piece, what was once mine quietly became hers. My seat at the kitchen counter, the holly mug with the chipped handle, even my favorite throw blanket, now folded at the end of the guest bed. Madison picked up the phone. She texted me updates about birthdays, ran the grocery list, left sticky notes on the fridge. She became the one who knew where everything was. And me? I was the one who had to ask. On the morning of Dad's memorial, I stood frozen in front of my closet, staring at a row of black dresses, unsure which version of grief I was allowed to show. I chose something plain, knee-length, fitted, not dramatic, the same one I wore to Uncle Mitch's funeral. I'd left it in the upstairs closet years ago, meaning to take it back. I never did. By the time I pulled up, the street was lined with parked cars. The porch glowed with lanterns. A wreath trimmed in navy hung on the door, tasteful and somber, just the way Dad would have liked. I stepped in, coat still in hand, and there she was, Madison, wearing my dress. I knew the stitching, the way it curved near the hem, dipped just right at the neckline. She'd pinned Mom's silver brooch to it, still didn't make it hers. She stood by the entryway, greeting people like it was her house, poised, calm, completely in her element. She was in the middle of a story. Dad teaching her how to sand cabinet doors when she was 16. Guests nodded along, smiling like they'd been there too. I stood there and listened. And something inside me twisted. That memory wasn't hers. It was mine. I remembered every detail. I'd just come back from soccer practice, still sweaty and covered in sawdust. Dad made me redo the sanding until it was perfect. I was 12. Madison wasn't anywhere near that shed. I looked around. No one flinched. Logan chuckled like it was an old favorite. Mom smiled as if nothing was off. No one corrected the story. No one said, "That was Emily's memory." I didn't speak. Couldn't. My fingers gripped the buttons of my coat. I felt like part of the furniture, seen, but ignored. People brushed past me like I was invisible. No one asked how I was. No one said, "He'd be proud of you." No one even realized I hadn't said a word. In the living room, the mantel was filled with photos. Dad as a kid, their wedding picture, Logan showing off a fish, Madison and Dad smiling near the shed. But the one of me and Dad, shoulder to shoulder, tools in hand, the day we rebuilt the fence, was gone. Like the stocking, like the mug, like I never existed. After the service, I lingered outside. The wind cut through my dress, and it was colder than I'd prepared for. I stood there, watching the windows glow from the inside, warm and full of a life I no longer fit into. I heard the soft clinking of glasses, the hum of familiar stories being retold, and it hit me. No one needed to say it. The story had been rewritten, and I wasn't in it anymore. I wasn't the daughter in the photos. I wasn't the voice in the room. I was just a name they used less and less, until it disappeared entirely. That night, I finally understood. Being erased doesn't always come with yelling. Sometimes it comes wrapped in borrowed clothes, stolen memories, and a room full of people nodding at the wrong storyteller. And all I could do was stand still, invisible, as I watched someone else step into my life like it had always belonged to her. A few weeks after the memorial, I went back to the house unannounced. Just a quick stop, I told myself. Just long enough to remind myself the walls still stood, even if I didn't belong inside them anymore. The porch swing still creaked in the breeze. Maybe, just maybe, even if I didn't belong inside, the house might still remember me. No cars out front. Logan's truck was gone. No sign of Madison through the kitchen window. The living room was quiet. No piano, no scent of baking bread. Just stillness. I unlocked the door with the key I'd never returned. The floors creaked under my boots. The same creaks I'd known since childhood. A few paintings had shifted, a couple of chairs replaced, but most of it was just how I remembered, only I wasn't the same anymore. I walked the halls like a stranger, passing the wall where my photo used to hang, the linen closet that once smelled of peppermint. Then I reached the study, Dad's study. It was the only room that hadn't changed. The air was colder in there, still, crisp. His recliner still slouched to the side, the fabric worn thin. His bookshelf stood proud, packed with yellowed paperbacks frayed at the corners. His old toolbox sat where it always had, under the shelf, paint peeling, corners rusted. And then, in the corner, The cabinet. Dark oak, brass handle. I'd seen him open it growing up, but never once looked closely at what was inside. I reached for the handle. It stuck, then gave with a creak. Inside, behind the cabinet doors, metal, a small safe. My chest tightened. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Then I remembered. He once said he kept a little key inside his favorite book. Just in case, he'd joked. My eyes scanned the shelf. Travels with Charlie, Steinbeck, cracked leather binding. I pulled it open. The key was still inside. I dropped to my knees, heart racing. Slipped the key in, turned. A soft click echoed in the quiet. Inside it wasn't crowded. Just one envelope, thick, ivory-colored. My name scrawled across it in his handwriting, Emily. I sat on the floor, leaned back against the wall, knees pulled close. I opened the envelope like it might break. The first page was his will, stamped, dated just 2 weeks before he passed. The house, his savings, the land in Jackson Hole, all of it left to me. No Logan, no Madison, just me. Behind it, one folded page, his handwriting, steady, familiar. Emily, I see it now. I didn't back then, and I'm sorry. You never asked for much. You just showed up. You looked out for me when no one else did. This house is yours. You deserve it. Love, Dad. I didn't cry at the memorial, not when Madison claimed my memories as her own, not when they forgot to look for me, not even when that photo vanished. But I cried there, on the floor of his study, not for the inheritance, not for the house, but because someone had finally seen me and said it out loud. 3 days later, I came back, not because I was welcomed, not because I expected anything to be different. I returned because I had something to leave, and this time, I wasn't asking for space. I was claiming it. It was almost dark, one of those hushed December evenings when the sky fades early. I parked across the street and sat in my car for a moment, staring at the house through the windshield. The porch light still blinked, uneven and old. The same crooked wreath hung on the door. From where I sat, the house looked warm, even welcoming. But I didn't flinch. I brought a simple brown box, tied with twine. Inside, a printed copy of Dad's will, the original letter, and the photo, me and him, shoulder to shoulder, grinning through a cloud of sawdust. The fence building day, that moment was mine. I wore a navy coat. No bright lipstick, no dramatic flair. Just me, steady, calm, sure. I walked up the steps and opened the door. No one looked up. The dining room was busy again. The table looked identical. Perfect name cards, sparkling glasses, polished forks. Logan held court at the head of the table, Madison by his side. Mom sat across from them, smiling that polite, practiced smile she once used on strangers. And once again, no place for me, no chair, no plate, no napkin, not even a blink of surprise when I entered the room. Logan glanced up. Fork suspended midair. His expression gave nothing away. I didn't ask. I walked to the center of the table and gently set the box down, right between the flickering candles. The twine briefly grazed a flame, casting a flicker across the lid. I looked Logan in the eyes. "Check under your plate," I said. The whole room froze. Logan hesitated, then lifted the plate. Underneath, the key, small, brass, aged smooth. The same one from Steinbeck's book. The one that opened Dad's safe. His fingers hovered, not quite touching. His expression remained still, but his silence deepened. He wasn't surprised. He was thinking, measuring. Madison leaned in. "What is this?" she asked, hand already reaching. I didn't respond. Didn't even glance at Madison. I looked at Mom. Really looked, for the first time in months. She rose to her feet, lips parted. "Madeline, this isn't..." But I cut her off. "I'm not here to stay," I said quietly. "Just came to leave something behind." Then I turned and left. No footsteps behind me, no voice calling me back, no apology. I stepped back into the cold. The wind caught at my collar. As I reached my car, I heard chairs shifting inside. A voice, Madison's probably, rose, sharp and unsure. The sound of the box opening, paper rustling, a gasp, Mom's. I didn't stop walking, I didn't turn around, because once truth is unwrapped, it doesn't need witnesses. It just needs to be left in plain sight. I shut the car door softly, the kind of silence that doesn't beg to be heard, just understood. Inside, the heater hummed. My hands rested on the steering wheel, not trembling, not tense, just still. I didn't turn the key, I wasn't in a hurry, I needed a moment to sit with what I'd done. And more than that, to sit with what I didn't do. I didn't yell, I didn't point fingers, I didn't plead for attention. All I did was place the truth where it needed to be, right there, between the polished forks and their perfect practice smiles. Inside that plain brown box were three things: a notarized copy of Dad's will, dated, signed, undeniable, and then the photo. Me and Dad, both in matching flannel, standing in front of the fence we rebuilt the summer I turned 16. Sun in our faces, dirt on our hands, and his arm wrapped around me like I belonged right there. And the letter. Emily, I see it now. You never asked for anything, you just stayed. This house is yours. You've earned it. Love, Dad. Nothing else. No justification, no apology, no drama, just the truth. Truth doesn't shout, it doesn't fight, it just waits, quietly, until the silence becomes unbearable. Inside that house, they were probably reading it all. Logan would have grabbed the will first, checking dates, verifying signatures, calculating consequences. Madison, I imagined, would be next to him, reading the letter, her jaw set in that subtle way it always is when something doesn't go her way. Mom, I wasn't sure. Maybe she'd be holding the photo, maybe seeing it for the first time for what it really was. Not just a picture. A moment. One she never bothered to remember. A moment that proved I had been there all along, even when she chose to look through me. I didn't need to witness their reactions. I didn't need to see Logan's self-assurance shrink or hear Madison's flimsy excuses. I didn't need Mom's soft-voiced, "We didn't mean it," or "We didn't know." Because their choices had already spoken, not through words, but through absence, through everything they quietly erased. And now the truth was right there on their table, not a weapon, but a mirror. They'd have to face it now. The words, the photo, the key. Speak it out loud, not to me, but to themselves. In their voices, in their shame. I started the car. The fog on the windshield faded slowly, revealing my own reflection, soft but steady. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to defend my place. The silence I left behind would speak loud enough. The first message came early the next morning, before my alarm even buzzed. Just a missed call and a voicemail from Mom. Her contact photo hadn't changed, us from 5 Christmases ago, grinning in matching reindeer sweaters. Hers a bit too big, mine with a marshmallow smudge on the sleeve. That was before everything started fading. Before I did. I let the voicemail play. Her voice crackled through my speaker. "Hi, sweetheart. We read what you left. It just caught us off guard. That's all. Let's talk soon. Stop by and we'll sit down, like a family. Okay? I love you." I replayed it, just to be sure. Caught us off guard. Not, "We were wrong." Not, "I'm sorry." Just surprised. Like the truth had arrived without ringing the doorbell. That afternoon, Logan sent a text. "Can we meet? There's a lot to clear up. I think we've had some misunderstandings." Not, "You were right." Not, "I went too far." Just misunderstanding. As if I had misread 10 years of silence. As if being erased was a mix-up. I didn't respond. Then Madison sent her version of an olive branch. One emoji. A sad face. I stared at it longer than it deserved. No words. No apology. Not even an effort. Just a sigh made of pixels. Like I was supposed to guess how she felt. Like I was supposed to care. I didn't. And what struck me wasn't that they suddenly reached out. It was what they didn't say. No one asked about the will. No one mentioned the letter. or the photo they'd quietly replaced all those years ago. They tiptoed around the truth like it was made of glass, as if ignoring it might somehow keep it whole. But the thing about silence is, it shields the one who inflicted the hurt, never the one who's left to carry it. So I chose not to respond, not out of spite, not even pride, just because some messages simply don't earn a reply. They weren't saying, "We were wrong." They were saying, "Now it's awkward, because you made it too real to ignore." I watched as the messages kept piling in, voicemails, a few nostalgic photos from Logan, an old ornament, the family dog. Then a text from Mom. "Your father wouldn't want this distance." But he didn't build that distance. They did. And in the end, he saw it, and left me the one thing they never offered. A voice. A voice that didn't need to shout, just needed room to breathe. Space I wasn't going to give up again, not for guilt, not for memories, and definitely not for a sad little emoji. By the end of the week, the messages thinned out. Maybe they ran out of ways to say nothing, or maybe they were hoping time would clean up what they refused to. Soften me, make me doubt, pull me back into that quiet, obedient version of me they could tolerate. Silent, forgiving, grateful just to be seen. But I wasn't that girl anymore. And then, Logan showed up, unannounced, wearing a charcoal blazer like he was trying to look serious. Important. My assistant didn't know who he was, just clocked a guy with too much confidence and no appointment. She came into my office, quietly closed the door, and said, "There's someone at reception. Says he's your brother. Want me to let him in?" I glanced up from my work, met her gaze, and simply shook my head. "Number, just tell him I'm in a meeting." She paused, just for a second, then nodded. She never asked questions. She didn't need to. Logan waited for maybe 10 minutes, then left. No fuss, no second try. That night, Mom called. I stared at the screen, let it ring a few times, and then picked up. Her voice was softer than I remembered, not gentle, strained, like each word was heavier than she knew how to carry. "Emily," she breathed, and for half a second I let myself think, maybe this was it. "This family," she said, then hesitated. "It's still yours." I closed my eyes. There was a time I would have given anything to hear her say that. I'd held on to that dream of being called back, told I belonged, that the door hadn't just closed without a sound. But now, I didn't need the door reopened. I'd already stepped through and kept walking. I let the silence stretch before I spoke. "I was always there, Mom." Another pause. "You just lived easier when I wasn't." She didn't push back, didn't cry, just exhaled like someone finally realizing that words now couldn't erase the silence back then. I didn't hang up, but I didn't fill the air either, because I'd learned something in all that silence they once wielded like a weapon. I didn't need an invitation. I didn't need to fight for a seat I already proved I'd earned. What I needed, and finally gave myself, was permission to walk away without guilt. Not because I stopped loving them, but because I finally chose me. A few days after that last phone call, I reached into the drawer by my bed and pulled out a small padded envelope. The address was already written, plain block letters, no return address, no signature, just one stamp in the corner. Inside was the photo, me and Dad, side by side after we rebuilt the backyard fence that summer. We were sunburned and dusty, grinning like, in that moment, everything actually made sense. His arm rested over my shoulders like it was meant to be there, like I was meant to be there. That photo used to hang in the front hallway, right next to the light switch. I saw it every time I walked in the door. But somewhere along the line they replaced it. With what? I don't even remember. Probably something generic, easier to forget. I didn't add a note, I didn't need one. No accusations left, no more names or explanations. Just a photo, a quiet truth that never asked to be justified. I mailed it the next morning. Didn't dwell on it, didn't say it out loud. But some part of me still wondered, what would they do with it? Would they toss it in a drawer, or straight into the trash. A week later, I got a text. Not from Mom, not from Logan, from Mrs. Alvarez, our neighbor 2 doors down. She and Dad used to trade tomatoes in the summer. We hadn't talked in years, but she still had my number, from some emergency form probably. The message was simple. Figured you'd want to know. This just went up. Attached was a grainy phone photo, but I knew it immediately. It was inside Dad's old woodworking shed. Dusty, untouched, since he'd passed. On the back wall, above the workbench, between a loop of rope and a rusted level, was the photo, Dad and me, slightly crooked. No frame, no caption. But it was there. Mrs. Alvarez didn't say anything else. No questions, no comment. She didn't have to. That shed had always been our space. Not Mom's, not Logan's, not Madison's. No one else ever stepped in. No one else ever cared to. It's where Dad taught me to measure twice, cut once. Where I held nails while he hammered them in. Where he'd say, "The world gets loud when it rains. Just stay steady, kid." And now, our picture was back where it belonged. Not in the living room, where they staged family. Not in the hallway for show, but in the one space that never tried to erase me. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't some reunion. It was something deeper. It was proof. The kind that doesn't fade. The kind that stays real. Even if they looked away or tried to erase it, some truths remain. Quietly, even if you're the only one who sees them. Life moved forward. No big moment, no big shift. Just the slow, quiet rhythm of normal days. I stayed in Portland. Same apartment, same cafe on the corner, same old radiator that groans whenever it gets cold. I still work too late, still forget the plants, still take long walks when sleep won't come. Some habits stick, but inside, something shifted. Not louder, just clearer. There's peace in letting go of the need to explain yourself, in knowing you don't need to win to belong in the story. Sometimes, choosing not to fight is how you find your voice. Most mornings, I still use that old holly mug, with its faded leaves and chipped handle. I brought it home after Dad's memorial, quietly, like a souvenir, like evidence. Every winter the chip deepens a bit. I let it. It belongs. Sometimes friends ask, those who know bits and pieces, "Did you ever get closure?" I usually just smile. Because closure isn't something someone else gives you. It's not an apology. Or a seat at a table that always felt too tight. It's the quiet certainty that you told the truth, even when no one was listening. So when they ask, I just say, I didn't need closure. I needed the truth to hold, and it does. And I lift my chipped mug, not in bitterness, but in honor of what they couldn't erase.